everybody. Happy Wednesday. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander. I am part of Power to Fly's hosting team. And as always, I am honored and incredibly excited to get started with our next Chat and Learn event. Now, before we dive in, get into all the good stuff, introduce you to our speaker, all of this, I want to take a quick second to remind y'all of some housekeeping items. These will be especially helpful if maybe you haven't joined us in a while, or maybe this is your first time. Maybe this is your first Power to Fly event. If that's the case, hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you. So the biggest thing to know about our virtual events is that your participation is our main focus. We want to make sure that you have the ability to get what you want out of today's session. You took time out of your day to be here. So first off, pat yourself on the back for that. But secondarily, you take the time to spend with us, and we want to make sure that time is well worth it. You can participate in a couple different ways. My favorite, personally, is to turn your cameras on if you'd like. Share your smiling, maskless faces with us safely. Now, there is no need to be, Instagram perfect, y'all. We do not care if you are in your bathrobe or a three-piece suit. You could be on your living room couch or in a corner office. We don't care. We want to meet you where you are. Now, if you have any kind of privacy concerns or anything, totally understandable. As long as you don't come off mute today, you will not show up on the live stream or the recording, whether or not your camera is on or off. So if that's a concern for you, hopefully that will help a bit. Now, no pressure to turn your cameras on. If you don't want to, that is fine. You can always participate in a couple different ways as well. You are encouraged to ask questions in the chat. So I'm going to ask one right now, actually. So everybody, if you want to pull up your chat window, it should be in your Zoom toolbar. I want to know where you all are joining us from. I am coming to you from Toledo, Ohio. This is land that was indigenously cared for by the Fox, Kickapoo, and Potawatomi tribes in my area, I believe. So please feel free to share where you're joining us from in the world. If you know whose land you're on, please feel free to chime in with that as well. Now, the other thing I wanted to highlight is that in that chat, you are encouraged to ask questions, network with your fellow attendees. You are encouraged to send in comments. Do you agree with what we're talking about? Has your lived experience been different? Do you want us to dive in on a specific term or something? Please, please, please feel free. Y'all truly have the power to drive today's conversation. So as we go over the questions that y'all submitted prior to, or when you registered, if you asked a question and you're not sure if we're going to get to it, ask it in the chat. If we are going over one of your questions and we're maybe not approaching it from the way you intended it, or if there's context or details you think that we should know, add them in the chat. Truly, y'all, this is how you get the most out of these events. Now, if you have anything that you want to raise, questions, comments, whatever, and you want to be anonymous, not a problem. Just DM me directly. You'll find my name, Meg Alexander, on the dropdown in your Zoom chat box window. Now, like I said, feel free to connect with other people. I'll be dropping links and all kinds of great stuff in the chat. But if you are, as we're listening today, and like I said, we are live streaming and recording, what that means for you is that you don't have to take notes. You get to kick back, relax, listen in on all of the great information and expertise that we're about to get from KT. And, if you want, we do have a little bit more of an interactive portion happening today. So if you want to grab a pen and paper, jot notes down, or if you want to open up a notes app on your desktop to take notes and kind of journey and map along with us, please feel free to, y'all. We really want you to make the most of today's event. Now, if KT says something today during the live stream that just mind-blowing, you cannot wait to share it with a friend or a coworker or a relative, everybody that registered for this call, or sorry, for this chat, is going to get an email from Power to Fly in 1 to 2 business days, so probably Friday, with a link to where you can rewatch this recording when it's posted on our website. Now, if you wait till then and you go over to our website, you can check out all kinds of amazing stuff, y'all. That is where our entire archive of resources, chats, everything is there. Everything that has happened from the beginning of Lunch and Learns, when Lauren Haggerty did the first Lunch and Learn till now, everything's there. So I definitely recommend you check out the website. Now, if you can't wait 1 to 2 business days, totally get it, y'all. You can head over to our YouTube channel. It's usually posted there within about 5 to 15 minutes of the end of the live stream. And there is a huge segment of our archive is also stored on our YouTube channel as well. So you can check out a bunch of our past events there. And I'll be sending links for you into the chat for all about this. Now, last but not least, Power to Fly has several missions at this point. But, a lot of them are missions and goals that I think are shared by a lot of you. We want to see pay equity in the workplace. We want to see gender parity. We want to see representation, belonging, inclusion that really reflects the diversity of our world, of our neighborhoods, of our customer base, everything. So we want to see these things happen. If you do too, I'm hoping that you'll want to help us out with this. So one of the ways that we think we can move or kind of move that goal closer is to share these resources. We have 100% free resources for anyone, and we want to get these in the hands of as many people as possible. So if you'd like, please feel free to take photos or video as we go today. Share it with your social media network. Let people know that you are taking advantage of these resources, learning great stuff from people like KT. Please feel free. We would love to repost, reshare, retweet, whatever y'all want to send out. You can always tag us. We are at Power to Fly on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And you can always use our hashtag Power to Fly. So please feel free to do that, y'all. All right, so I'm really excited to introduce you to today's speaker. Let me get my mouse moving. There we go. So KT McBratney is going to be joining us today. I hope y'all are just as excited as I am to get to talk to her. So KT works in non-linear paths. They are an entrepreneur, community builder, recovering marketer, and the co-founder and chief community officer at Own Trail, which is a new social network to own your story and achieve your next milestone in life as well as in work. Now, KT is an active voice within the startup community. They advocate for life-work balance as well as people-first businesses. Now, they championed the 4-day work week, which Own Trail implemented in 2022. I cannot tell you how eager I am to see this sweep the country as well as the world. Now, prior to launching Own Trail, KT served as Chief Marketing Officer at Seed and Spark, rose through the ranks of an award-winning digital agency, as well as got their career start at one of the world's best zoos. Their work has been featured in USA Today, GeekWire, Thrive Global, Insider, and more. KT, I am so excited to start talking. Before we go any further, is there anything else about your background that you want people to know, anything that we haven't talked about or you think is important for them to know before we start?
What an incredible welcome. I just want to say that. And no, I think you covered it all. I mean, as some of you might have gathered, I use they, she pronouns. So I am proudly a non-binary person. So all of the missions of Power to Fly for gender equity and equal pay and all of that, hell yes. Oops, you're muted.
Y'all, I do this how many days a week and I still lose my mute button. All right, let's see. Oh, Donna actually asked a quick question about asking if we vet any info that we post online. Absolutely. Yes. If you've got further questions about that, please reach out to me in a DM. You can also email our main help desk, hi@powertofly.com. That's just hi@powertofly.com. Okay, so KT, I'm going to turn the floor over to you so you can share the screen as much as you would like. Why don't you talk to our audience and let them know how we're going to be doing this today?
Now I needed to find my mute button. Okay, let me stop my, can you see my screen okay? Or are you seeing all of it? Okay, great. I've moved Zoom around and I have messed up my life.
Oh, I totally get you.
You just change one little thing and you've thrown it all. First, I want to say thank you to Meg and to Power to Fly for having me. Huge fan of Power to Fly, and I will stand by this, and our teams at Own Trail will stand by this. Like, one of the best organizations to partner with. Like, every single person we work with is a delight and top of their game. I wish I could say that for every single organization and team I've worked with. It's just simply not true. So we are here because of one of the best orgs around, built by some of the most incredible people. So I want to thank them for having me and for bringing us together, because this group of people have never been together before, which is really, really exciting. And it also means that, much like Meg said, you have an active voice in this conversation. The first thing I'm going to ask you is how you want to do this, because we can make this as interactive as you want. So what we can do is, I've got a little talking bit that I'll kind of set some context and share my journey. And then we can go into an exercise where you can actually, as a group and individually, work on mapping your own journey, which will address some of the questions that we've already gotten before the event, and also create some opportunity for us to connect and share in real time, which I found in doing lots and lots and lots of these workshops create some magic. Somebody might be able to help you with a challenge you're facing, or might be going through a similar experience right now. And it's also really nice sometimes just to give voice to what you're working through. We can do it that way, or I can do more of the presentation and give you some food for thought in how you might approach mapping your journey on Own Trail. And then we can open up to conversation. If anyone feels strongly either way, if you will pop it in the chat, do you want to go more? Do you want to do more journey mapping? Do you want to do more Q&A?
Okay, let's do a 1 for journey mapping and a 2 for Q&A. If you want to do mapping, type 1 in the chat. If you want to do Q&A,
Cool.
type 2. We're getting overwhelming ones.
Yeah. Once, 2, we will have Q&A too, because it's interactive. So we'll.
Oh yeah, you'll still get the Q&A, y'all. Q&A will happen.
All right.
All right.
One.
Oh, and then real quick, if y'all have questions while KT is talking and you want to send them into the chat. I'm going to be recording every question that gets asked so that hopefully we'll be able to get to as many of your audience questions as possible today.
Remember what I said about like best in the biz? Right there. Right there.
Thank you.
Cool. So you've seen a little bit about me from my intro, but I'm going to tell you a bit more about me and my journey in a second. Some of the questions that were submitted in advance that this will cover to some degree is we'll go over how journey mapping differs from a career plan. We'll literally show you, as well as how it's similar and a bit different than a vision board, because there is a visual component. We're going to walk through the steps of creating a journey map, which we call a trail. So we will walk through those steps together. And the cool thing is it's going to be both for your professional and your personal life. And it's a practice or an exercise that you can use to reflect on the year that just ended, prepare for this new year ahead, and so much more. So really, this exercise is helpful to build confidence, to get clarity, and also to build connections with yourself, right? Remind yourself of what you've overcome, celebrate your accomplishments, but also think about what you might do next and help you better connect with each other in this virtual space now and also moving on. Because I'll show you a cool way to add that you're part of the Powerfly community to your trail so you can find each other easily after. Okay. My only other little admin note is that we might get to a few things that feel a little bit different than like most webinars do, and that's by design. We are kind of conditioned as a society to like fill space. Like silence is like awkward. And as we go today, like chime in. Do not feel like you need to hesitate. If you've got something to share, if you have a question, if you have a thought, love it. And also know that we might take a beat and wait for somebody to feel like it's their time to step in, and it might feel a little different. And I'm just going to ask you to ride with that, because usually on the other side of that silence, which might feel just like a tad bit awkward at first, is usually something really, really worth it. And it also creates space for people who might not be the first to raise their hand to have a chance to jump in, because we know not always the loudest voice is the most thoughtful. And we want to make sure to really create this next 46 minutes together so that everybody can get the most out of it. To know there's a question in the chat. Do we need to know our next step to create a trail? Nope. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, I'm going to ask you all just like a quick question. You can pop this in the chat, but like go back to when you were a kid. And we always so young get this question, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And we think about occupations, right? Like that's usually what people are trying to get to find out if a little you, like, did little Meg want to be a professional surfer? I don't know. But when we were little, we could imagine. We weren't planning. And one of my imagined paths for myself was to be an author, an astronaut, and an attorney. I am none of those things. And I wanted to be them simultaneously because I didn't have to think about making it possible. So we used to have these big imagined, like, yes, this will be my path in life. It's going to be awesome. I'll figure it out. But somewhere along the way, we start hearing this question in various forms, a lot of times not explicitly. But is that the right path? Like, are you sure about that? How are you going to make that happen? And it changes things. We also have to think about practical things like, how long does school take? Do I really like this? Do I want to do this? Can I do this? But it brings up this idea of this mythical right path. And I just want to context set here before we get into the journey mapping of exploring what this mythical one right path is, because we hear about it and we stress about it. But the thing is, like, nobody can really tell us what it is, but they have a lot of feedback when they think we're not doing it. And also, like, people who are on this right path, like, everything looks easy for Beyonce. And we also know it takes a lot of hard work, right? Like, two contradicting things. Like, people on the right path have easy wins, but we also know they worked really hard. And it's something kind of buzzworthy, right? It's something people are like, ooh, that's interesting. Ooh, I'm going to tell my friends that you're doing this. But also, it didn't exist yet. Like, I didn't know I would become the founder of a tech startup because I didn't know it existed. So how could I have been on the right path to something I wasn't even aware of? And that's because this idea of there being a single right path through life is totally like a lie. It doesn't exist. And today, as we work into this journey mapping, we're going to push through that idea that, like, is this the right path? And is it my right path instead? Because it's really about perception, right? And inaccurate perceptions, actually. Because if we focus on the right path instead of our path, we're unfairly comparing ourselves. Like, if you think of your resume, you're going to always know what you leave off, but you're never going to know what the other candidates have left off of theirs, right? It's just not balanced. Then also, this creates this thing called presentation pressure. Instagram is full of it, right? Oh, is this the right photo? Am I presenting the right, like, the perfect image, the right, all of that? And it's really, really real. And that messes with our focus. So the more we stress about being on this one right path, the less attention, time, energy, all of it we're dedicating to our right path. And I know it because I have been there. I feel so bad for the stock photo person who's I'm using, but it's a great picture. I'm going to one day meet them and just be like, I've used you in a presentation. I hope you got paid every single time. Because you might have heard my bio, right? Like, when Meg introduced me, I was playing the hits, little flexes here and there that I'm proud of, but it looks like success after success after success, this straight linear line. But the reality is our paths are a lot more like this. And this is actually my journey that I've mapped on OwnTrail, which we'll get into you making your own and seeing what your little colorful squiggle looks like in a moment. And to share you more about, like, the power of mapping your journey in the way to achieve what's next, I'll show you how I've used it. Again, with the caveat that I love that you set us up this way, Meg, that this is my lived experience. This is what I've learned about myself and about the world. So yours is going to look different because it's yours. And that's the beauty of it, right? None of us have had the same experiences. We've had similarities, but we also have meaningful differences. And being able to zoom back, like Meg just said, like, let's pull back and let's look holistically at our journeys, because then we can see that we've done a lot of hard things. We've done a lot of cool things. We've also learned a lot. And we can think better then about what we might do from here, which plays into some of the practical tips some of you asked about for productivity, goal setting, work-life balance, etc. So we're going to zoom out so that we can zoom in, if that makes sense. So I'll walk you through my trail. I linked to it earlier in the chat if you want to, like, click on it and see what it looks like in non-slide form. But if we start, and I had, like, all the part-time jobs. Like, I first started my career at a McDonald's. I have worked at a toy store. I've been a dental assistant. I have been a landscaper, but that's shaped a lot of how I approach work. And the fact that there's no job beneath anyone and you treat everyone with kindness. It also taught me that I've been very curious and also been privileged to be able to hop between different things while I was paying my bills. But then I went to school for journalism and got my first job at a zoo, which at the time did not feel like the right path for someone who was a trained journalist. I worked in a marketing department at one of the best zoos in the world, and it was an amazing, magical job where I learned so much. But when I was comparing myself to my peers, they were working at the AP, the LA Times, newsrooms. And I was like, I'm working at a zoo. I felt like the odd person out. And that's not a bad thing, but I was different. It was my path. And from there, I was a proud grad school dropout because a part of our journeys are the things that we stop doing or the paths that we don't take, right? It's not just what we achieve, it's what we chose. And it wasn't working for me. So I chose not to do it. And I'm so glad I did. Because from there, I was able to really focus on my marketing career at the time, where I went from a copywriter to the general manager of an ad agency in 6 years. Sounds awesome. Like on my LinkedIn, like it looked like I was winning at life. And then what isn't on the LinkedIn is the work-induced burnout that followed. So I know from some of the questions, some of my burnout friends are among us. Welcome. If you're in our club or new to it, we do not have cookies, but we have lots of good stories and hugs. Then I got laid off. It was the first time I got laid off. I knew it was going to happen. I knew where the company was at. And it was weird. Nobody wants to be hunting for a job. If anybody is on the job search, I feel for you. It is hard. It's never easy. Right now is a very strange time because soon after, in my next job a year later, I was laid off again. And this time was completely without any warning. I walked into work one day. I loved my team. We had just had like a little outing. Opened my laptop. I was ready to rock and roll. My numbers were amazing. Again, like I was like, this is awesome. We're going to change the world. An hour later, I was standing in the parking lot being like, what the hell just happened? And even though I knew it wasn't about me, the company pivoted. They moved completely business to business. My role was more business to consumer. It made business sense. It wasn't about me as a person. And if you've ever been laid off, it hurts. Like even when you logically know it's not about you, nobody wants to not be wanted. And nobody wants to be looking for a job unexpectedly. I'll just leave it there. But it was how that experience shaped me, changed my life forever. Because of what I did with it that intertwines my personal and my professional. Well, I jumped ahead. Because of that layoff, I decided I was never going to work that hard, which is the only way I work, is extremely hard, for a company that didn't align with my values. I deliberately made a choice that I wouldn't probably have been forced to make or had the reason to make, to do that without that layoff. So something super negative netted something absolutely, so many positive things came from that, from what I made, the lemonade I made from those lemons. And those were some sour lemons, right? But it also just goes to show that like, there's nuance in our experiences. Some things are positive and negative. Some things can be negative, but there's a positive that comes out from it and vice versa. But what about the achievements that aren't like metrics based, right? Like I paid off my student loans and that was like a weight was lifted, and being able to celebrate that and share it publicly also allows space for other people to be like, I'm working towards that. It's possible. Or I feel that too, right? It's visibility, it's representation, and it also is a connection builder, as well as me being like, that's a huge part of my life to not have, that monthly payment living rent-free in my brain. The payment in my brain was rent-free. The payment that I actually sent in was many dollars. But in my personal life, like I'm sure all of you, and feel free if you have one in the chat, like to drop it in the chat, but there's things that happen in our personal lives that alter our professional lives. And for me, becoming a parent, like that's not revolutionary. I'm not the first person to say becoming a parent has shifted my life and my priorities, but it's a part of my journey. And as we move through, like I've met my future co-founder, like just forming a friendship changed my personal and professional life forever. But then what about what I'm doing now? Right? Like we talk so much about our life in past tense, and we'll reflect on yours in your journey map today in past. But to capture what we're also currently going through or experiencing is still part of that same journey. So now, instead of focusing purely on marketing, I'm exploring the community world and focusing there. And to be able to share that invites other community builders, people interested in it, people who are much better at it than I am, to come in and we can support each other. I'm now part of Techstars. We are in our first week of the Techstars program, so I can share that now with the world that this is a thing that I'm doing to develop myself and my company. What about what I want to do? I want to draft a book. Now, this isn't a form goal. I'll show you in a few seconds or a few minutes how you can use OwnTrail and like map your journey if you want to use it for goals. But you can also talk about aspirations, right? Like, what about what you might do? Because just like I thought I would be that author, astronaut, lawyer, things change. And it's okay. It's okay to change your mind about what you might do. Or it's okay for the world to change, because as the past 3 years have shown us, it is going to, whether we like it or not. So drafting a book, and then my dream job in the entire world is to be a skipper on the Disneyland Jungle Cruise. And to be able to tie that in to the rest of my story is another way people can get to know me. I'm not just a professional. I'm not just, an artist, a parent, etc. I'm also someone who really would love to ride on a boat all day and tell really bad jokes. Brianna, I hope I said it right one of those times, knows what I'm talking about, where they say, the backside of water. If you have not been on the Jungle Cruise, I'm sorry, that reference and that joke does not land, but I promise you, it's a little bit worth it. And the whole reason I wanted to share my story of how I've mapped my journey into this trail is because I needed to own my story, the full narrative, personal, professional, past, present, potential futures, not just to build the career I want, but the life I want. And this is what we're going to do now. We're moving to you mapping your trail. We're going to do it on OwnTrail because we created this free tool for you to do it. All you need is a password and an email so that we can keep your info safe. Kathleen from our team just dropped in a link that'll automatically add a Power to Fly badge to your profile, which will look really cool. So you can see all the members of this rad community proudly on my profile. Or you can do it manually. There's a lot of profile fields because we want you to be able to choose your own adventure and add what you want. But I'm just going to say, skip past the profile now so we can do the fun part. You can come back and add this whenever you want. Also, just a little admin note. This is all yours. You decide if you want to make stuff private or public on a milestone by milestone basis. So each one of those little experiences I shared is what we call a milestone. And rather than saying yes, this is all public or it's all private, you control it. You control whether you want maybe starting a family to be personal or public or private, a bad experience at work. Maybe you want to change jobs and you don't want the world to know that yet. You'll be able to hit private. And Kathleen from our team is in the chat if anybody has questions about using it and all of that. Okay. Now we're going to get into the journey mapping. And this is going to get the very interactive part. So raise your hand, chime in the chat. I am not going to be the main voice now happening, which is my most fun part of this, because I'm going to offer you all some prompts or some questions. And we're all going to have different answers. And sharing them is the most fun part. The other thing is neuroscience backs up how writing our stories, physically writing out our stories, maps, it deepens the grooves in our brain, right? It rewires our neurons to make that story more prominent. I bring that up because it's an important thing to do, especially if you're yeah, I want to tell my story differently. Kind of like manifesting, right? Did anybody's teachers be write this down, you'll take notes, it'll help you remember? They were right. Science has proven it. So the act of typing in actually this was meaningful to me helps cement that part of your story in your brain, just like speaking it will. So it might feel this is a nice exercise to do. It's the same for writing down goals, Amina, right? It's a way to make them more real. And that's science-backed. It's not just feels good, which it does. Also, Power to Fly and OwnTrail are community-powered organizations. So lean into that. This is your community, whether you know people here or not. And you might you might actually be surprised that your next collaborator, the intro to your next best job, somebody who's navigating the same thing might be sitting in this room. So my first question for you, as you look at building your trail, mapping your journey, is what is an experience that shaped who you are today? And if you have one and you're feeling like jumping in, pop it in the chat or raise your hand. Laura put in the chat sobriety. Say less. That is amazing. Annie, cancer. Formative. Yeah. Poverty. Motherhood. Yes. Working too long at a job that didn't appreciate me. Moving to a new country. Y'all are killing it in the chat, by the way. Now, by putting that as part of your trail, you're owning that piece of your journey. It doesn't mean that you're like going to be singularly defined by it. I think the cancer example is one that there's members of the Own Trail community like have said, like they've been the cancer girl. And the cool thing by mapping this on your trail together is you're not one single defining characteristic. If it's a central part to your identity and you'd like to center your journey around it, and that's true for you, awesome. But this is the place where you get to bring all those pieces together and not be that person that is in one box. So if you felt like you've been like, you know, the get it done girl, or the athlete, or you felt like you've had an identity that doesn't encapsulate all pieces of you, this is the place where you can kind of reassemble these pieces to show the true story of you. Anyone else? And feel free if you want to come off mute, because the chat is amazing. And also Meg and I would love to hear your voices too.
Yeah, y'all, please feel free to use the reactions thing. It should be in the toolbar, your Zoom toolbar. If you use reactions and hit raise hand, that's how we'll know if you want to come off mute to share something, okay? Just so that way we can make sure that I'm not missing somebody if your camera's on, but you're not on my first slide here.
Cool. And as you can see, as you've kind of been clicking around, the way we built this trail creator is so that you're in charge of like naming and labeling your own experiences. They're roughly grouped into 6 categories that as humans, we generally share in life: education, career, relationships, obstacles. Like we all have them in different degrees, but there isn't a right category for you. Like if you're like, I don't know where to put this, choose whatever feels appropriate to you. Like you can always come back and change it, A, and B, nobody's going to tell you it's wrong because it's yours. And I think that that's a big freeing thing to use this as a tool for journey mapping. I personally end up going back and revisiting my trail, like when something happens, right? If I have a different perspective on a past event, if something new happens, but also I try to use it as like a practical tool, much like someone asked in the pre-event questions, like establishing goals and accountability. And that's something where you can also use this as a tool, not just like a pretty finished product, but come back to it, revisit it, and say, like, is this still true for me? I have an aspiration to write a book. Am I doing it? Or has that aspiration shifted? All right. Oops, I clicked away. So I shared one of my experiences, a milestone with that layoff that felt negative at the time, but turned out to be positive, or vice versa. I'm curious of this group, if there's anything that brought up that someone said like, oh yes, I had something that seemed like the worst, the end of the world, but it was blessing in disguise. Or I thought I had the dream. Little did I know. If you do, please raise your hand, pop it in the chat. I will, like, some context around this is we are rewarded as a society, especially professionally, for outcomes. And a lot of times there's a lot more nuance, and sometimes things that seem like they're achievements have a lot more to them than that. Y'all are hitting it up with like these end of romantic relationships, right? Like, yes, that's also on my trail. And having bad, like toxic bosses, layoffs, learning a new industry, these things that are incredibly hard and are negative. That is true. and what comes from them can also have positive effects. Oh, a great one there, not getting into my top college. I bet that was super hard. And also, who knows where you would be if that had happened. Because like a lot of times we're taught to like categorize things as like good or bad. And most of life is yes to both. Getting let go from a dream company. Amanda, I'm curious to know if you're willing to. I'm curious to know, like, obviously getting let go, terrible. Nobody likes that. But how did that turn out to be a positive in the long run? If you'd like, anybody, feel free to add context or jump in the reactions to share. I know, Meg, you're jumping in there as well with many of yours. If you feel like sharing, no obligation, but.
Yeah, sure. I'm an open book. We had talked earlier before the chat started. I think a lot of people have heard me talk about this before. I had a mental health crisis in 2020. I'm not the only one. I think it was very popular that year, but I was very trendy. So I ended up getting a series of diagnoses, but the biggest one was bipolar type 2. So while it is a huge change to a lot, if not all facets of my life, it's made a lot of things easier in the long run. You know, like my therapist and my mom ask questions all the time about, like, you know, what would your life have been like? Do you ever think about these things? And it's like, well, yeah, maybe, but it brought me where I am now. And I love where I am now, despite some of the bullshit it took to get here. So I think I absolutely love this question because there's a lot to unpack there. Amanda Stout looks like they want to come off mute. So Amanda, I just gave you permissions if you want to come off mute and talk.
Thanks, Meg.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. Sorry, I was late getting in and got a loud mouth behind me, but I 2 years ago after the pandemic, really was in a situation to take my time with where I wanted to work, who I wanted to work for, and let me interview people, like who do I align with. Accenture was in my top 3 places that I wanted to work. Beautiful company, beautiful people involved there, doing some magnificent magic across the world. So I got on board through an acquisition, but the acquisition was the arm of the acquisition was really toxic. Fought to get out of that unit. But just there were roadblocks everywhere. It's like I could see the purple cloud across the way, but couldn't get in, just couldn't meet enough people, couldn't network enough, couldn't get involved enough with volunteer projects. But made some great relationships. But in the end, it was so bad that I had a meltdown. Thank God that for short-term disability and adjustment disorder, I had wage replacement. And then when I came back on board, I had 30 days to identify a new project, or I would be let go. So, busted my ass trying to identify the unit that I needed to be in. Where did I align? Like, it's so big, like this company's so big and everything is really self-serving. So I had all of the tools. I had access to the job. I got 2 interviews. I had 2 interviews, and whether I bombed them or I just wasn't a good fit, doesn't matter. But I ended up getting let go, and there's like, I was in West Palm Beach and there's just nothing there. And I'm just like, I'm going to move to Austin. I'm going to move to Austin. So I cashed out my 401k and I cashed out all my stocks, and I had good credit for the first time in my life. And I packed up the Chihuahua, the motorcycle, and we hauled ass. And I have a wonderful, beautiful apartment. My mother was here for Christmas. We spent Christmas for the first time in 20 years. She got stuck in the Southwest saga, so she got to stay another week. So I was blessed with her another week. But it's been nothing but wonderful blessings. But I still get caught up. I'm still trying to find a job. I still want to work for a dream company. Then I'm like questioning myself now. I was like, well, all this, like, now the imposter syndrome is like all over. And, I'm going to lose all this. I'm going to lose all of this that I just busted my ass for. Like this all just came together. Like it's magical. And it was courageous. And it was very brave for me to do this all by myself. And it was like, somebody wants me. Somebody is going to be very, very happy with me. I'm going to reap great benefits for them. Like, where the hell are they? So, the applying for jobs and the canned regretful letters, like it's overwhelming, and I'm just like, I'm over it. And it's like, I know that that the universe provides. I know this.
But
and I'm
that doesn't
doing the
make
work.
it easy when you're waiting for it.
Yeah. So I have until the end of February to identify something that's going to pay my bills on this wonderful, beautiful home that I just moved into.
Thank you so much for that. That was like, what an amazing story. Thank you for sharing it. And also, we're going to get to how you can ask for help and call in a community of support to get you that dream job. I think, Margaret, it sounds like you're in the same kind of position. We're gonna do a quick hack. I don't know why I'm calling it a hack, because like it's just a simple thing to help you get there. Because that's the thing, is like some of this stuff is hard, and sometimes you need encouragement. Sometimes you're like, yeah, I've got a lot of encouragement, and I also know, like my emotional and my logical self knows, and also I want it, like I just need it to happen, right? Like those two things can be true. And so I think by mapping your journey, like as this trail, one, it can help you when you're having those low moments. Like, even though like it looks like my life is easy peasy, it is not. I'm the parent of a 4-year-old. I have a new company. Like the world is still in a pandemic, a recession. Like challenges are abound. And it's helpful to see like what I've overcome, the cool things I've done that are unique experiences, like working at a zoo. But also to be able to say, okay, how am I taking that into what I'm doing now or working on now into what I want next? How do I actually like find what I want next, determine what I want to do next, have that clarity with that confidence, and then plugging in connections. And even if it's like, I just need more moral support, or I need somebody who knows somebody at X company, or who's gotten a job in this field that's like not very big, that there aren't a lot of roles for. So we're going to get to that in actually just a second. I might even skip in. Jay has a question. Is there any way to freelance your skills? Oh, is that for Amanda? Good question. Okay, we'll come back to that. Okay, I'll jump back to the slide. And like, I promise Amanda's not a plant. I did not know that she was going to tell that story. And yeah, to freelance your skills, that's totally an option. I think that that's the cool thing about using your trail and mapping your journey on this, is you can say like, I've been thinking this has to be a full-time salaried position. I know lots of people that do essentially fractional roles to create a full-time position, that they have more flexibility for their life and what they want. And in some of the cases, making considerably more. Freelance can be overwhelming, and there's a lot of groups, and I know Meg can point you to a lot of resources within Power to Fly that speak specifically for freelancers. So just know that's true. Monique, yes, share your trail. If you want to connect, drop the link to your trail in the chat so we can all connect with one another there. But Amanda brought up a thing. We're all facing different forks in the road right now. And it might be professional. It might be where to move next. Somebody just posted one of those, added one of those milestones. It might be I'm out of shows to watch. Like there's lots of forks in the road that we're facing, and they don't all have to be big, like massive life decisions. Sometimes it's just like, this is a thing I need some support with. The cool thing is, by naming this, you can ask for help. As you've been adding your milestones to build your trail, you might have noticed this little thing saying, do you want to create a help beacon? And that's the hack that I was talking about. It's this way that we've created that really works to reduce the stigma for asking for help, because y'all are part of the Power to Fly community. You know, there's stigma about asking for help, or this pressure to be able to do it all yourself, especially if you're a woman or anybody from a marginalized or oppressed identity, right? You have to, the adage that people have to work twice as hard, right? Is true. And sometimes that can affect how we ask for help. The other thing that we've learned is sometimes we're not good as people at asking for help where people can help us. So for example, someone might say, I need help breaking into freelance. It's an awesome question. It's an awesome thing to ask for help for. But what does that mean? Do you need to know the best sites to post for? Do you need to know which of your skill sets you should build a freelance career around? Do you need to talk to somebody about how to price either hourly or project-based work, et cetera? So we've created this little recipe that we added to help beacons, which are like a bat signal. Like just imagine you get to like hit a bat signal with a help beacon, and like the whole Own Trail community can be like, oh, I can help with that. And they rush in and they reply. So the recipe is, I need X from Y in order to Z. And that allows someone to get from that, I need help figuring out freelance work, to I need help finding where I can post, like where I can find the best clients for my freelance writing work. Somebody can be like, I'm a writer. Or what often happens, this fun network effect where somebody's like, I don't do that, but I have 3 good friends who do. Can I connect them to you on LinkedIn or whatever? And just by that simple action, 2 things. 1, you're asking people to help show up for you. There's an amazing talk that a member of the Own Trail community did that you can see on the site. You don't even have to log in to do it, about rest as resistance. But as part of it, she said, don't rob the people who love you of the opportunity to help. And when we don't ask for help, that's what we're doing. So 1, you get to ask for the help, but also you get to be a little bit more specific in what you actually need to move forward. So if there's anybody who needs help with something right now, not only can you add it to your trail, but you've got this whole room of people who are listening, paying attention, and might actually be able to be your solution or part of it. So drop that in the chat if there's something that you have. Yes, the paid membership is for connection. We'll hook you all up. We'll hook you all up for that. I promise this is not salesy, so I'm not going to even take it that way. That's why we made a lot of our features totally free, because we don't want to eat this for that. But Catherine, I'll send you my info. You can just hit me up. All right, a fun one that this will be the last prompt for this. We do a lot of talk about goal setting, 5-year plans, all of that. Let's try and flip that a little bit differently. What might your life look like in 5 years? But I also like to think, like, what do you want it to feel like? Because if you think about the feelings you want to have, is it abundance? Is it ease? Is it joy? Is it love? Is it the sitting by the beach and having the wind through your hair? Then you can say, okay, what are the steps? Reverse engineer that. What career steps are going to make you feel more free? Is it getting a job that makes more money, having more control over what you do, working fewer hours? The possibilities, I don't know. That's the cool thing, is by mapping your journey and thinking about what you've done, where you are, and where you might go, you can figure out what that next step is to get you to that life you want. Because nobody's going to know that exact answer but you. And because this is such a fun one, I'm curious. I'm seeing freedom. I'm seeing ease. If there's anybody who wants to come off of mute and say what their ideal life is feeling like in 5 years, and if they know one of the steps to get there, I know we would love to hear it. Jay or Jai. There's a couple people. Meg, do your magic.
I got you. Hold on here. Let's see. Raise your hand. Use the raise hand function if you want to come off mute. Coffee, we'll ask you to come off mute first. Use the raise hand function if you want to also come off mute to chime in or share. And Coffee, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's already shared. Thank you so much for sharing with us. This is really, really awesome, and we really appreciate your vulnerability here. Coffee, would you like to come off mute and ask or contribute? If you want to, you're more than welcome to.
I'm
There you
also
are.
Amina, but I am on my cell phone because I had to step away. But mine is freedom, and I'm working on it because I got a job to make more money so that in 10 years I can retire from technology and do something that is more purposeful.
Amina, I love that. Yes, yes, yes. As somebody who's worked in tech for a very long time, you have what you want. You know what you want that life to feel like, and you know that there are steps to get there. Financial freedom is often like the key for so many of us. And I laugh because it's like, you ask almost anybody what they want more of in life and everybody says money, regardless of how much they have. I love that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to come off of mute?
Jai will. All right, Jai, let's see. Let's see. There you go, Jai. I've gave you the unmute prompt, so you should be able to come off mute here.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hi. It's Jay, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just really quickly, I really appreciate what you guys are doing and giving us the format for jumping in here with some good road mapping and instructions. But I think part of the really big thing about my journey was I decided really early on that thank you, Meg. I decided really early on that I wanted to be free with my lifestyle choices. And that freedom, of course, had to have the use of money as a tool and a resource. I worked in corporate America for many, many years while being a single parent and raising my kids. And I finally got to the point where freedom of lifestyle and choices, I knew when I put my oldest into kindergarten that I didn't want a job to dictate what kind of parent I could be. And so I quit my corporate job and I have been working W-2 jobs on and off, but more or less freelancing since my kids were in school. My oldest graduated college 2 years ago. My next one graduates in May, and my last one just graduated high school. And I have put together the pieces of what seemed like crazy choices at the time, but they all really contributed to the freedom and the fulfillment of a satisfying lifestyle. Stuff did not always look conventional, but I've found the place now where I have the freedom of ease and peace in how I manage my days. I don't have to be up at 5 o'clock racing through the dark to get to a job somewhere. I work fully remote. I have clients because I freelance. I'm a freelance consultant full-time. I set my own prices and wages. I change them as I can, and I do the things for my clients that I enjoy. And I've not had to market myself yet because all of my clients have been referrals from friends and in my network. So I'm enjoying the ride to the fullest. My days don't start with any of my clients until usually about 10:30 or 11 because I like my morning times for my meditation and my morning routine. And it really gives me more of the freedom. I'm still working on the things that I need to for the actual abundance, but everything is working well and it's working with ease and it's working with joy because that's how I want my lifestyle to be. So it's out there. You just got to start digging into it.
Yes, on just yes. I don't know how more emphatically to say that. Thank you for sharing that. Also, kudos to you as a parent, like those milestones of kids graduating and like graduating college, like that is a celebration for your child and for you. And also you were like living proof that you can blaze your own trail. Like you don't have to do it the way that we're supposed to do, right? And like what a ringing endorsement for the fact that like make it look the way that you need it to look. And if it doesn't need to look that way, like I bet the corporate career was like awesome in some ways, but when it stopped working, trying to, we all know what it feels like to force something. And so kudos to you. And thank you for sharing that example of like, it can be different if it serves you to be different. I think that there's this movement right now and some of us are seeing the negative side of, the negative outcomes of the Great Resignation and this changing relationship between our lives and our work. There's a collective cultural shift happening that some of it's forcing functions, layoffs, those are real and they suck. Like we've talked about that. And also this idea that like, you have a choice. We have a say now more than we do, more than we maybe felt like we did in the past. And as you publish your trail, I know we're getting close to time. I just ask that as you publish it, if you're ready, that just means other people like the people in this group and on Own Trail will be able to see it. What I like to do is take a step back, that zoom back that I talked about, and look at your journey from a place of observation, not judgment. What do you notice? So for example, I used to see on mine a lot of blue milestones, like predominantly they were blue. Blue is the color for career milestones. As you saw it, it looks kind of like somebody ripped open a bag of Skittles and like shook it up. And I like that. Like I didn't feel bad or inauthentic when it was all blue. But as I've thought more and thought about what matters to me to share with others and to claim as part of my story or in part of my future, I like the multicolored. That doesn't mean that somebody shouldn't have an all blue trail. Like you do you, but think about what patterns you might notice, what you want to lean into, and what you want to adjust. And really, like as we come to close, I want to leave a little space for follow-up from Meg and kind of to close us out in her fabulous, energetic, magical way. Here's how to contact me directly. Like Catherine, hit me up. Anybody else, please, please, please. Like my title is Chief Community Officer for a reason. So like I'm very accessible. Would love to talk with each of you about where you're at, how we might help, and just really be a resource for that. And also I want to say like Power to Fly is a huge resource. That's why we love working with them, because we're here to help you claim where you're at, where you might go, and help find your people. And they're the experts at helping you find that dream job, helping you find the people that excel in your career, helping to change those mission-driven, like big goals that we want to see happen soon in our lifetime, but sooner if possible, like that pay equity, etc. So know that you've got this kind of constellation of resources around you that can support you on that, because a world where we're all really living the life we want is going to not just matter to you, but to everyone whose life you touch. Just like Jay's example, like I'm sure that example you're leaving for your kids is huge. And know that each of us have that power, just like we lit up when that story was shared. Y'all have those stories in you too. And you don't know who needs to hear them, but you could totally change the course of somebody's life, but just by showing them how you are doing yours. So thank you. Meg.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Seriously, KT, thank you so much. This has been an absolutely amazing chat to get to sit through, and not just because I kind of really did get to sit back and listen. So thank you so much for that. I want to, Catherine's saying she doesn't see your contact info. So
I'll drop it in the
Kathleen,
chat.
Yeah, throw it in the chat there. And we'll also include info like this in the rewatch email that goes out. So KT, I'll touch base with you later. Just throw it into the anything that you reply to Paloma. All right, that is going to bring us to the end of our time today. So KT just dropped her link in the chat there. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our attendees. Y'all brought amazing questions to this, and the participation was off the charts. So really, really, really thank you so much. I love all of our chats, but I especially love the ones where you all are driving it, where you are taking that control and really getting the information that you want to know. So thank you so much for coming. Not just because you give me a job, but really I want to congratulate each of you for doing something for yourselves today. Really congratulate yourselves. It's not easy. It is hard work to carve out time for yourself. So thank you for that. KT, there are not words enough to describe how much fun I've had today. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, sharing your time, your expertise, as well as being so transparent about your own journey. That was really, really impactful, not just for me, I'm sure. I could see it in the chat. So thank you so much. I really hope we get to do this again soon.
Thank you all for having me. I feel like I've made like so many new friends. I hope that's not weird to say, but I said it and I mean it. So thank you all. And thank you to Power to Fly for bringing us all together.
Heck yes. All right. All right, we're going to have to close out for today, but if this was your first Power to Fly event, I hope you enjoyed it. I sincerely hope this is not your last. If you are one of our frequent flyers, and we see you a lot, shout out to several of our attendees. I know I saw people from the previous chat today join as well. So thank you so much. We really, Power to Fly, we know that you have a ton of options when it comes to things like this for upscaling and resources. We really, really appreciate that you chose to spend time with us. So truly, thank you, y'all. This has been, as always, a really, really great adventure for me, as well for you, I hope. Have a safe, happy, healthy rest of your Wednesday leading into the rest of the week. Don't forget, we've got some great programming coming up this week and next week, and our first virtual Diversity Reboot Summit of 2023 is happening the first week of February. I hope this was enjoyable, and I cannot wait to see y'all soon